From the beautiful city of Los Angeles, California, we bring you the Gimme Three Podcast.
Welcome back, cinephiles, cinema lovers, movie appreciators, and of course our loved ones to the Gimme Three Podcast, a series for cinephiles. So I've got some exciting news and some sad news for y'all today. Sad news is my incredible co-host, Nicholas Ibarra, is out of town this week. So unfortunately, he won't be joining us on the podcast today, but never fear, he'll be back next week just in time for our Michelle Pfeiffer Spotlight episode. Definitely won't want to miss that one. Now, the exciting news is that this will not be a one-man show today. I have a very special guest on the podcast with me. You've met her before in our Agnes Varda episode, and I'm so excited to have her here again. Welcome back, Remy Smith. Hi, Remy.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here again.
Dude, I'm so happy to have you back on the pod. Seriously, what could be more perfect than my ride or die being here to talk three incredible ride or die films? So if you guys couldn't already tell, our theme for the day is Gimme Three Ride or Die movies. We picked three films, all led, written, or directed by women that perfectly reflect this theme. And I gotta say, the three we chose are like some of my favorite films ever. I don't know about you.
This is a great lineup. I'm super excited to get into it.
Me too. They're all just like so much fucking fun, and they have incredibly powerful female characters. Their friendships are everything, and there's just something about seeing women love and like fight for each other that gets me emotional. It's just beautiful, honestly.
Totally feel that. And just the journeys that they all go on in all three of these films are so exciting. So they're just so much fun.
I totally agree. And while they all have the same theme, I feel like they're all pretty different, which is pretty exciting too.
Definitely.
Like one is a comedy, one is more of a adventure film, and then the other is like crime action. So
yep.
I'm very excited to delve into all of these today. So yeah, without further ado, let's begin. Our first ride or die film is the most metaphorical of the three films that we selected for this theme today. But it features two best friends who would no doubt go to the ends of the earth for each other. And that film is, of course, Olivia Wilde's debut feature film, Booksmart. In this 2019 high school teen comedy, Beanie Feldstein and Caitlin Dever star as lifelong inseparable best friends, Molly and Amy. For the past 4 years of high school, Molly and Amy have worked their asses off to guarantee successful futures. Perfect GPAs, perfect resumes, perfect internships, and perfect future colleges. All they need are their high school diplomas in hand, and they're ready to begin the next stages of their life. But on the last day of school, Molly's worst fears come true when she discovers that her half-assed classmates are all attending either Ivy League schools or impressive internships this summer as well. In a panic, she realizes her and Amy's entire lives the past 4 years were spent doing homework and nothing else. To make up for lost time, Molly and Amy decide that it's time to go to their first high school party to guarantee they make some fun and crazy high school memories together before graduating the next day. Of course, getting to the biggest and best party that night proves to be a little trickier than the two high school geniuses expect. Oh man, I love this movie so much. Fun fact for everyone, this movie came out during our freshman year of college at LMU, which is actually where I met Remy, my freshman year roommate in the dorms.
We were very lucky to find each other, that's for sure.
Yes, we were texting back and forth to see if we would be compatible. She was trying to subtly figure out if I was Mormon. I was trying to figure out if she thought I was Mormon. It was the whole thing.
Yeah, it ended up being one of the greatest friendships of my whole life. So very happy that happened. But yeah, I mean, it was the perfect time for that film to come out, and it's just so, I mean, it's so of that time. So I feel like me and you especially can really relate to what these two characters were going through. Their senior year of high school and getting ready to go to college, and all the anticipation and the awkward feelings,
the expectations.
Yeah, exactly. And just, reflecting on the past 4 years of your life as a high school student and getting ready for all the unknowns and sort of comparing yourself to everybody around you and being worried about missing out on things and, comparing yourself, and just it's so relatable. It's such a fun, funny movie. And these two characters are just perfect together, and they bounce off each other in like the best ways. So I love this film.
Totally agree. And I think you're like spot on. I honestly think Booksmart could be like a staple teen comedy for our generation.
Completely.
Gen Z. I just feel like it's a very funny but also like accurate reflection of like our generation, and then specifically the era, like 2019. Like they've got the slang, the costumes are not really there, but I think that's what makes it kind of funny. Like I noticed that watching it, I was like, what the hell are these people wearing?
Yeah, I would never wear some of those.
But I loved it. I support it. It was great.
Totally.
But the one thing that stood out to me was like the music is very, like the soundtrack is so awesome in this movie. They've got like LaCaille 47, Death Grips, Parliament, Anderson .Paak, Sonic Gold, LCD Sound System, Likey Lee, which I mean, I feel like we kind of bonded over music. So I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like for me, at least in high school, those were like all some of my favorite artists. So I just thought that was so funny watching this. Like Come Down by Anderson .Paak. Dude, that was like my national anthem in high school. Like,
they nailed the soundtrack, and just the way that the music it plays such a big role in this film, where it's sort of it comes in, you know, sort of abruptly, and then it's such a big part of furthering the plot almost. I think they absolutely nailed the soundtrack for this one. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I think it'll make, I mean, on top of everything this movie is, I think it'll make a really fun, it'll be so fun to watch this movie in like 10 to 15 years. Like,
yeah, totally. I think, you know, our kids will watch this film one day and be like, was that what it was like? And, you know.
Yeah, it's going to be their like Breakfast Club.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. I just feel like all the themes that they touch on here, and especially, you know, I went to high school in LA, and this takes place at a high school in LA. And there's just something about it that I just find so charming and witty, and the honesty between these two characters and just how close they are, and all the emotions that are tied up in this super transitional part of life. It's very authentic to me, the way that they portray this sort of you know, this time when you're just going through so many different kind of unexpected emotions and these big transitions, and you're trying to figure out all your peers and trying to figure out, you know, maybe your sexuality or who you're interested in, and it's so just true. It's such an enjoyable watch. I've like smiled through this entire movie when I was watching it. So.
I know, it's just like, charming is the perfect word. Yeah. And I love how you talked about like the kind of like discovery or like getting to know your peers in high school, because I think that's something that this film does really, really well, where it's like, at least for me, like and I feel like it's a pretty common experience, like once you graduate, you realize like how much you grew up with every person in your class, and you almost feel like sad that you didn't get to like personally connect with every single person in those 4 years. And that's something I love that they depict in this movie, where it's like so many of the characters are like, oh, there's blah blah blah, like known her for 3 years now, right? And then they like actually get to know them on like a real level in it by the end of the film, which is so fun to see, and so like relatable, like you said.
Totally. And I feel like, you know, just personally for me, I spent a lot of time, especially towards the end of high school, just so excited to get out of there. I was like so ready to go to college, and
feel that.
You know, you're just so done sort of with everything that's around you and all the kind of bullshit that can come with being in high school. Especially during that time, you know, with social media, and they do a good job of sort of portraying that, how everything is being filmed or live streamed, and it adds this whole other element to your life. But
it's so true.
It does do a good job also of sort of, I mean, like I felt very nostalgic watching this, and I was so ready to get out of there. And then once I was finally out of there, you kind of have the time to reflect and look back and see, you know, how transformative and important some of those people who maybe didn't play like a critical main character role in your life when you were growing up actually really were, just because they were there and saw you through a lot of stuff.
I love that.
It's just, yeah, it really nails it in a lot of ways, I think. And of course there's some things that, are, made for film and maybe aren't super, exaggerations. But overall, it's just a really touching, heartwarming look at like how important a friendship can be in discovering yourself. Yeah,
totally. I am such a massive fan of Beanie Feldstein.
She's incredible.
And Caitlin Dever is pretty cool too. She's not, like she's cool. Yeah. But for me, Beanie like honestly kind of carries this film a little bit. I think her and Caitlin do genuinely have incredible chemistry. Like they're perfect together as best friends in this film. Like in the opening sequence when Amy picks up Molly on the way to school and they have that little dance party outside. That was just like so awesome, like so perfect.
And the way that like when they dress up to go out, they have to have this whole little like back and forth about how beautiful the other is. Oh, that cracks me up.
No, you're gorgeous.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love it. I was like, that's so real. Like so the way they gas each other up is just like, it's so perfect. But yeah, and I guess like, I don't know, like initially I was thinking like Beanie is my favorite character, but the more I think about Amy, like she's such an awesome character as well.
She
and
is.
The reason I maybe prefer Beanie is because I like relate to or prefer Molly is because I relate to Amy a little bit more because I'm such a like anxious little freak.
Yeah.
And so like when I see Molly, I'm just like, oh hell yeah, dude, like. She is just like so confident in herself and I love that. And in a way she did kind of seem to be framed as the leading character like from the get-go. Like she's the first one that we're introduced to in the film. And honestly one of my favorite opening scenes ever. I think it's just like the perfect introduction to her character because it kind of has like a Sofia Coppola vibe to it where it's like we're introduced to her through like the objects in her room or like how she decorates her room and it's like her academic achievement trophies and like feminist posters, like a freaking framed photo of RBG. Like it's just
she's
like
got like a take no prisoners sign on her like above her bed. She's hilarious.
Like, massive. And then like all of that's happening while she's listening to this podcast that's like one of those empowering mantra kind of things. And it's like, you've worked harder than everyone who's ever doubted you. And I'm just like, oh my God, that's classic Molly. Like, I love that.
And then, of course, she finds out, even though maybe she worked harder, other people got into great colleges too. Yeah. And that is sort of crushing for her, which is really funny.
So funny. That scene is so, I love how they shoot that. And they even bring back that voiceover when she's like having the panic attack. They're like, you've worked harder. It's so great.
Funny. And it's funny too. It's interesting a little to consider her character in this film and then like the parallels of her character in Lady Bird also.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like there's just some similarities there that are kind of interesting. It's just a role that I think she pulls off really well.
She just, I think she also just has really brilliant comedic timing. Like,
yes.
She did, I guess the reason for me that she kind of carried a little bit is I just noticed how amazing she is at like delivering those funny lines, but also like queuing up other people to deliver their funny line.
It almost feels like sometimes it's like improv. Like that's how natural it feels when they're sort of riffing with each other and like bouncing off each other. I honestly would not be surprised to find out if some of that was just like natural and made up on the fly. Because that's honestly how it reads to me. Like it really does feel like you're looking at these two girls in some of their most like intimate and vulnerable moments together as friends. And that's, I think, something really touching and something that we can relate to too, because they do nail that in a lot of ways, and it's not all pretty, they get into that argument at the end of the film where they're screaming at each other and you kind of get some insight into how, Molly can be a little bit overbearing and sort of impose her expectations and her life plan and, all of that onto Amy. And so I think that it's interesting to sort of see that nuance and that complexity of how, friendships can be really intense and not
especially
perfect.
at that age.
Totally. I mean, like at that age, I think there's just so much pressure to have a plan, and you don't really realize that you don't necessarily like need to have it all figured out, at that age.
Yes.
Um, but there's like this big pressure, like where are you going to go to college and what are you going to study and what's your plan after? And, you kind of have to make decisions about what you're going to do with the rest of your life. When you're still a teenager, which is crazy.
It's so fucking crazy.
And I think they do a good job of sort of exploring how, when one person thinks they have it all figured out, and then another is maybe a little bit more trying to figure it out and playing it by ear, how that can sort of clash in like a best friend situation like that.
Totally. And like they also do a good job of touching on the pressure of like staying close and like even though things are changing, which I feel like is such a common like relatable experience that is just so painful and like stressful as hell. And it does lead to like a big argument sometimes, like it happened in the film. So, I thought they did that really well.
The anxiety of that, the anxiety of what will my life become? You just don't know who you're going to meet and what your life is going to, what direction your life is going to take just in the next year, which is crazy because you've spent your whole life, up until that point in high school, kind of knowing what to expect and reaching for this goal. And then suddenly there's just like this big unknown. And so I think it makes things a little bit more tense with your close friendships like that. And they do a good job of showing that. But like the beautiful thing about this film is how, they have their argument and they have this big blow up and things get weird and things get awkward. But by the end of it, they sort of have realized that their shared experiences and their friendship is so important to them. And they'll always be friends, no matter where in the world they go. If, Amy's in Botswana making tampons or, Molly's on the Supreme Court, they're still going to be friends. So
they're so cool.
Really sweet. They are so cool. And just like, there's so many little things I could point out in this movie that are just so relatable to me. Like even when Amy is like talking about how the one time she like smoked weed and got high, she just cried the whole time about her mom. I'm like, and then when they do find out that they're like, on something and she's like, my mom had a scarf that color and she gets really emotional. Like, it's just so funny to me. I'm like, that's just so true.
So true. And I literally was like crying. I was laughing so hard when in that scene when she's like, one time I threw up and my mom caught it in her hand because she loves me.
The like, emotions.
Oh my God.
So funny. Yeah, I laughed out loud. Like one part where I was like, my stomach was literally hurting. I was laughing so loud was the part where their principal's their Uber driver. It's Jason Sudeikis. God. Yeah. And they're like watching porn on their phone. And he's like, I can just, if you want to listen to your own music, I can just hook it up here. And they're like, no. Oh my God. That killed me.
He's all, was that Cardi B?
What? It's perfect. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He was so good in this movie.
He plays like this sort of loser principal really well. He does a good job of that.
And like I also that whole like Uber Lyft driving scene is so fucking funny. I love when he has the like road rage and then he like freaks them out and he's just like a lot of angry people in this city. It's like
yeah. Oh my God,
and see that.
So funny.
So funny. I also want to shout out Billie Lourd as Gigi. I think she like is just such a fantastic part of this film.
She really is. She brings such an interesting vibe to the whole thing.
She really does. And I honestly love Jared as well. Like the super like kind of struggles socially, but like super rich kid. And like their duo together is so funny.
Something about him just tugs on my heartstrings. I don't know.
I know. Like, he's such a sweetheart. Like that scene when he's like, when Molly's like, why do you hang out with her, like Gigi? And he was just like, well, she just like needs a person, and like so do I. And I was just like, oh my God.
And he's always nice, like
always nice.
There's weird rumors and stuff about him, and I think that is also just like so relatable about high school. Like the one weird rumor will put people off to somebody, and like they'll never bother to get to know them and figure out what they're actually like. And then once you dig a little deeper, you find out they're like super cool and a great person. So
yes.
Yeah, I loved his character a lot too. And Gigi is just so great. Like, she's hilarious. Her whole thing about like losing her virginity in a graveyard and like
insane.
The dead ghost babies are like in her eggs, or I don't even know what she was saying.
Yeah. I lost my virginity in what I thought was a park, but it turned out to be a graveyard, and now the ghost spirits live inside my eggs waiting to be reborn.
She's so funny.
So good.
And it's just perfect how she pops up like everywhere out of nowhere.
Yes. So. I love the flow of this film. I love that they get stuck at like all the different kind of like social group parties. Like for me, the murder mystery dinner party scene is just so fucking like that whole I just love that those two theater kids like put that on. I thought that was so funny.
And they're just like so dramatic and so into it.
So dramatic.
Like, so in character. And it's so funny.
Yes.
So it's like the different vibe of that party and like just all the different places that they end up in. It's just I like came away from this and I was like, God, I wish I wrote this movie. Like it must have been just like so much fun to put this together and like write all of this and
so fun. Even I just remembered like when they get in the pizza delivery guy's car and they have their like hair as masks. And he's like, I think you guys were like not thinking this through clearly. Like this is really dangerous. And like clearly you spent more time on like the hair mask thing. And they're like, yeah, that was something we were really worried about.
Like they thought that through a lot more than getting into a strange man's car who also ends up being like a murderer. Like
like an actually dangerous strange man.
So funny too. And he's like lecturing them about being safer. I don't know.
It's such a great scene. I love that they like come back to that because I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, what was that scene about?
I know. They wrap
and then
it
ends up
nicely.
being like a really big piece of the plot in like the ending.
It's kind of crazy actually.
Like how
she goes to prison. Like
it's how they break her out.
This movie is crazy. This movie is all over the place, but it's so funny.
All over the place. And oh my god, honestly the plot twist with like Amy seeing her crush Ryan kissing Molly's crush Nick, I like forgot about that. I was like
yeah
oh
I felt that pain for her too. Just like that feeling of like being so excited about a crush that you have and like thinking things are going well and that you have a shot and you've like built it up so much in your head and then it's like and of course, and like the fact that she's getting with her best friend's crush too is just
it's so awful. Especially like after that scene with Molly and Nick playing beer pong and like they're so cute together. I was
like
convinced.
Totally leading her on. Ugh,
yeah. Oh, I was so fuck Nick.
No,
not our wonderful co-host, but
no, not him. I also can we just talk about how their word for like when someone pulls
ride or
Malala,
die,
it's just Malala. Like Malala kills me. Like why? It's just so funny to me.
It's so out of pocket, but like also makes so much sense for these characters.
Yeah, Molly came up with that one. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
It's so funny.
Yeah, that shit was so funny. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's just it's such a fun journey that they go on together.
It's too much fun, and of course, I have to mention like the tripping scene with the Barbie dolls is something that is just such an unforgettable scene for me. Like
they like walk out all stiff and
and I never even noticed because I was like, oh, why are they like dressed? I realized that they're dressed as like the characters that they were assigned at the murder mystery party.
Oh my god!
Like Caitlin's I can't say her name. Amy's like supposed to be like some farmer girl, and then Molly's like an unhinged nurse. And so I was like, oh, that explains the like weird, sexy Barbie doll outfits.
So funny. And they're like, she's like trying so hard not because. I forget I think it's Amy who's like, oh my god, my body is like so nice. Like
damn.
And Molly's like, no, you can't do this.
She's like, don't fall for this, Amy, please. She's like, where are my genitals? It's so good. I love that. There's so many fun scenes in this film. Such great messages. I almost wish I had this movie like my freshman year of high school because I feel like it would have given me some nice advice on like how to pursue the next 4 years.
Right. It would have given some good insight and just like, I needed that, because I think there's a lot of pressure on high school kids to just like have it all figured out and be cool and not be weird and not be different. And that's something that I think this film does a good job of, is sort of exploring how individuality and like having a unique identity is something to be really proud of and like a strong suit. And yeah, I mean, I agree. I really wish I could have seen this when I was like 15, 16 years old. It would have been great.
Would have been a game changer. Yeah.
Totally.
Well, any final thoughts on Booksmart?
I think we covered a lot of it. And this is just such a fun one. So if you haven't seen it, you got to go watch it because, you'll be laughing through the whole thing. That's for sure.
Yeah, it is so funny. And you know what? There's not nearly enough women-led like teen comedies that also pass the Bechdel test like this one does.
Yes, totally.
So to all our lovely listeners out there, if you guys know of any hidden feminist teen comedy gems like this one, please let us know. I'm seriously dying to find some more. And in the meantime, if you want to check out Booksmart, you can stream it on Peacock right now, or simply rent it wherever you rent your movies or hit your local video stores.
All right, next up we have a very different film, very different from Booksmart. It's a film that features one of the most iconic ride or die best friend duos of all time, and that is Ridley Scott's Thelma and Louise. This movie, written for the screen by Callie Khouri, came out in 1991 and has really stood the test of time, remaining entirely relevant today. Thelma is played by Gina Davis, and Louise, played by Susan Sarandon, embark on a weekend getaway free of the constraints of the controlling and overbearing men in their lives, especially in Thelma's case, who escapes her self-centered and dismissive husband, Daryl, played by Christopher McDonald. Things go wrong early in their trip when Louise rescues Thelma from an assault outside of a bar they've stopped in and shoots and kills her attacker. What follows is a truly wild ride as the pair goes on the run from the law after coming to the conclusion that the world they live in would never grant them a fair trial under the circumstances. They run into several interesting characters along the way, including a small-time criminal and drifter named JD, who is played by a young Brad Pitt in one of his early breakout roles. And the two best friends create quite a bit of trouble for themselves as they attempt to flee from the detectives and law enforcement. Yet through it all, they remain entirely loyal and committed to each other. Despite the situation they're in on this journey, they are completely free from the constraints of society and the gender expectations placed upon women, refusing to surrender all the way through the end. So I first saw this film a few years ago with Bella. Actually, we watched it together.
Yes.
And I remember how blown away we both were after watching it. I think the title credits rolled and we kind of just sat there in silence for a second. Yeah. And we were like, oh my God. How did you feel upon a second watch of this?
I was worried that it wouldn't have like the best rewatch value just because like it's almost kind of painful when you know what happens.
Right.
But this movie is just so much fun. Like
it is. It really
there
is.
are so many funny moments in it, and Gina Davis and Susan Sarandon as Thelma and Louise are just like the perfect dynamic duo to lead this film.
They're so great. They're such a believable best friend pair.
Yeah, I would say that's something that I feel like now I'm just realizing is such a central theme through the three movies that we picked is like, I truly believe the best friends are all actually best friends off screen.
It's the chemistry between, the friends in all three of these movies. It's just like so palpable, and
yes,
it brings a lot to the screen.
Mm-hmm. One thing I love about this movie is the costumes in this film. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's such a massive part of like, one, just like the overall aesthetic, but also like the plot, because their style and their outfits like dramatically shift when something kind of shifts in Thelma and Louise, and like once they're irrevocably changed forever. Like there's no going back, and they're no longer the women we met at the beginning of the film. In fact, they're like unrecognizable, and that's where Elizabeth McBride's costume design comes into play, and I think she just killed it. It's
definitely
so fun. Like in the beginning, because in the beginning we have like Thelma. She's wearing this like flowy white dress with like, it's got like a corset and like puffy sleeves hanging off her shoulder. Like she looks like a fucking Disney princess. She's gorgeous, and which also like matches her personality a little bit. When we get like first introduced to her, she's kind of like, I don't know exactly how to describe her, but then like on the other hand, Louise has like a little bit less of a feminine style than like Thelma, but she's also, I noticed she's also wearing like a white coat and stuff like that. But it's not even after killing Harlan, Thelma's attacker, but it's right when they meet JD. Fucking JD. Fuck that guy, man.
You think you can trust him. You think he's charming, and he
so
just
damn charming.
Screws him over. And it's like handsome Brad Pitt. Like you just want to love him so bad. But
I know. I like want to hate him, but looks really good in that movie.
He does.
But yeah, it's like after they lose, they like get the money from Jimmy, and then they lose it to JD, and they start donning all this like denim. And then when all hell breaks loose and Thelma robs the liquor store, that's when we get to see them in those like iconic outfits everybody knows, like the cutoff tanks, denim jeans, sunglasses, bandanas. Still waiting to do that for Halloween because goddamn,
that'd be a great
looks
costume.
So fun.
We got to do that one of these years.
We have to do that. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting how the costuming plays a role in sort of your perception of them and how the plot moves along, and this like transformation that they go through from being these like sort of small town women, one in a shitty marriage with freaking Daryl,
forced into the like housewife
mentality. I mean, he was just awful. I mean, he enrages me at the beginning of this film, the way he treats her.
Awful, but also like so fucking funny.
He's hilarious, especially like towards the end where he's like,
oh my god,
working with the cops, and he's trying to be nice, but it's like so unnatural to him.
That scene is amazing. He goes,
so funny.
Thelma, hello. She goes, he knows.
Yeah. Give the phone to the
all
cop.
I did was say hello. It's like, if that doesn't tell you how shitty this man is, like, I don't know what will.
Such an asshole. But a fun fact is that Gina Davis and Christopher McDonald, who plays Daryl, actually were together.
No way.
They were together. Isn't that so funny? I was like shook when I saw that.
So funny.
Yeah,
that has me very shook.
So
I would
funny.
never have paired those two together. But I guess also I've only seen him in like this and Happy Gilmore and Hacks, which is such a fucking good show, and he's really funny in it. But it's another
he's hilarious. He's so hateable and so hilarious, and
I love that he becomes kind of like the laughing stock of the film.
He totally does. He gets like, he gets to be shamed basically.
Yeah.
But it's just so funny. Like these two women are such badasses, and their love for each other is so palpable and magnetic on the screen. Like you just, it's a beautiful friendship. Like they are truly loyal to each other. And all these men around them are just, gross, and even, like right down to like the trucker that makes gross comments and faces at them. Yeah, and they're just like, I love the talking to they give to him at the end.
Yeah, it's so good.
Why did you think that would be okay to do that?
And he's just like so dumb. He's just like, what's
and then
happening?
they blow his truck up. It's awesome.
Yeah, he had it coming. It's so true. That was something I noticed that kind of made me think about on our last episode together, Agnes Varda, like in One Sings the Other Doesn't, how just like all the men in that movie were like not great. But in this one and that one, they may have had like a little bit more redeeming qualities, but like every man in this movie is like shitty,
very shitty. Like even the ones you
very
like,
shitty,
like JD, they end up sucking. Which
even like I don't know. For me, the investigator, like I don't even remember his name. It's like Slocum or something weird like that.
Hal Slocum. Yeah,
Hal Slocum.
Yeah.
he kind of seemed like to me he was meant to be like the supportive man in the whole thing. But like the way he would talk about them, like he's like, oh, those poor girls, those little girls out there,
helpless. Yeah.
Yeah.
They
It just felt very weird.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, like they have gotten this far. They are clearly more than capable of anything you could ever like perceive them to be. You know what I mean?
Right. And the way that he sort of like they frame it to when they're trying to get, other people to sort of tell on them and like get them to work with the detectives to, corner them. It's always framed as like they're so lost out there, they got themselves in all this trouble, like give them a chance. But like where's the respect? All right.
Yeah,
look at what they've done.
seriously.
Like they're badasses. They're so cool.
So badass. I'm like, you can't say that after one of my favorite scenes, which is like when Thelma robs the liquor store. Louise is like, what did you say in there? And they like cut to the whole detective room and her husband watching the like
Just
tape,
in
and
awe.
she's just like,
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for your cooperation. Now stay down on the floor till I'm gone. Have a good day.
Jesus Christ.
Good God.
My Lord.
Like where did she learn? She learned it from JD is where she learned it. Took a page out of his book.
She did.
But
she really did. Yeah.
she's just so it's funny because it's like she does a great job at holding up this this store, and then she's like, thank you guys, thank you so much, thank you for your
Thank you so
time. Like
much.
she's like still nice, she's
So
still
polite.
sweet about it. Yeah.
Yeah, even when like they escape that one cop, she's like, I'm so sorry about this, officer. Like,
Yeah.
gonna put you in the back of your truck.
No, I know it's crazy. I just feel like I got a knack for this shit. I believe you did.
She does.
So awesome.
Well, yeah, and it is funny sort of how like they go through this progression where at first it's like Louise is sort of calling the shots, and like they get into this shitty situation after they kill this disgusting assaulter man.
Yes.
And they get in this shitty situation, and Louise is sort of like, okay, we got to figure this out. And she's the one that's like, no, we can't go to the cops because we're never going to get a fair trial in this world that does not believe women and doesn't look at the greater circumstances. And, you were all over him all night, so they're going to say you asked for it and blah, blah, blah. It's so relevant. I mean, we still deal with this to this day.
Relevant.
Women still have to deal with this. But Louise, sort of seems to be the one in charge who's got a little bit more like clear-headedness. And then towards the end of the film, it's Thelma who's like robbing a store to help them.
She's like,
and
let's fucking go.
like she really is the one that gets them out of that sort of scary situation with the cop that pulls them over. And she's the one that thinks quickly about, shoot the radio. And
they were
just
cooked.
funny.
They were screwed in that situation.
They were. And it's just, I love how they both come to each other's rescue always at the perfect time.
Yeah.
And like they
so
don't.
True.
Yeah. They despite the fact that they're in this what would be anxiety inducing and stressful, and like just you're on the run from the law, you've got like the FBI involved and shit, like it's like scary, they're still so free. And that's what I love about it, is that throughout this whole film you feel this sense of freedom from them, where even though it's not an ideal situation and like they're facing potential crazy consequences for what they've done, even if it was justified, they're still not, even though they're on the road and even though they're on the run, they're still like living by their own rules, and they're not like tied down by these gender, expectations and these constructs that are forced upon women in our world and still are. And it's just them two, and they've like they're in it together, and they're on the road together, and they're in like middle America and trying to make it to Mexico, and you're just like rooting for them so much. So even though like it's a shit situation to be in, it's better. You feel that from them too, where they're like, I feel alive, for the first time. I think Thelma says something like that. Like I feel like I just woke up, or I feel alive for the first time. And,
it makes me emotional, like,
right?
Especially just with like how awful Daryl, like the way she was treated. And then you learn that she was like married to him since she was like 18.
The only man she'd ever been with. Yeah.
And
JD's
I'm so like, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. He's like, I can fix that. And he does for a night.
Yeah,
and you're so happy for her. And then he
knows
sucks.
what he's doing.
Then he turns on them, and that sucks. But yeah.
He burned him, as she said.
know.
I can't believe he burned me. So many good. I like. This is going to be like my most quoted movie. There's
so many great
funny
quotes.
lines in it.
Oh, it's so
And-
great.
Yeah,
I need to read the script. I would love to read the script for this. Written for the screen.
yes, that would be so cool. Oh my god. I remember being like so shocked like that it was Ridley Scott because I was like, how did a man make this? And then I was
Right?
like, oh,
It was written by a woman.
yeah,
That's why.
makes
Yeah.
sense.
It's just such a great, iconic feminist film, and it holds up.
Yes.
They're just so easy to root for, and you think about like where they started in this film and their like mundane lives.
Yeah.
You know, Louise is working in this restaurant with like this creepy manager guy, and Thelma is, you know, obviously like forced into this housewife role with her shitty, dismissive, controlling
Housewife
husband.
hell. Yeah.
And then they just break loose, and it's awesome. Yeah. Oh, and also the soundtrack for this movie. Like we talked about Booksmart soundtrack, but this has such a great soundtrack. They've got like a Chris Whitley song in here. I was so excited when I heard that the first time we watched it.
Gold. Yeah.
It's a great soundtrack. It's like perfect for this
I also
film.
didn't realize that I learned on this watch that Hans Zimmer did like the main theme for
Yeah,
it. It's
I
called
saw
like
that too.
Thunderbird after her car. And oh, dude, I'm gonna start like playing that to get up in the morning. That theme gets me so hyped. Like it's so awesome because it's like the guitar and it's kind of like a Western because this movie does have like a big Western feel to it.
It does.
But then it's also kind of like 80s rock. Like, oh, it's so awesome.
It's so good. This is like a top 5 film for me, honestly.
Sure.
The pacing of it and just it's like perfect. Like the way that they pulled this off is just so perfect. Everything about it.
Perfect.
The characters, the dialogue, the way the plot moves, the music.
Yeah.
It's just
and
I love it.
Arc. So good.
Character arc is
like,
great.
That was something I noticed on this like second or it might have been my third rewatch. I don't remember, but was like there's a point where like at least for me, I was like, dude, Thelma's pissing me the fuck off. Like she's making all just with JD. That was really her only like mistake. But
I know,
it
like
was a
what was
really
she
big
thinking?
mistake.
Yeah.
And it makes you so mad in that moment because especially to see Louise break down like that because she's been like
it's all
Thelma's
her money.
rock. Yeah, and it's all her money and like her plan ruined for just like a really really probably amazing night of sex. But but like so I love the way they like Thelma like reinvents herself in a way and comes back just like stronger than ever. Like she's so fucking awesome. And yeah, it's just the perfect like the ending is just like the perfect culmination of their friendship. Like it really makes me cry every time.
It really is. And I think the ending is so great. And I'm pretty sure there's some controversy about it. Like, oh, really all that just for them to drive off a cliff at the end. But there's something about it that I just like the symbolism of it is so great. You never see them crash. You never see them die. You never see them fall. The last shot of the film is just them suspended in midair over the Grand Canyon, like flying. Freeze really, frame. Yeah, exactly. Like flying. This great freeze frame of them flying. So it almost is like an unanswered question. Like you don't know for sure. I mean, like you can assume that they die, like it's a suicide, but it never really gives you that closure. So it's you can interpret it as like this. The film ends on this like shot of them flying over the Grand Canyon, and like what's freer than flying, you know? So it's like instead of them, you know, kind of just giving up and like deciding, okay, we've been caught, like let's, you know, they're like, no, I want to keep going, and I love that the whole idea of Thelma being like, let's keep going, let's not stop, you know, and then they kiss. It's just like
kiss.
I know, literally. But yeah, it's just like I think it's like the perfect way for that film to end because they're on this wild goose chase the whole time and they're on the run and it's like, okay, where is this going? Like, are they going to get away with it? Are they going to make it to Mexico? And like, as it keeps going, you realize it becomes clearer and clearer that no, they are not. Like the cops are fast on their tails
right behind them. Yeah.
And they're like, no, we're not going to give in to all these like men cops that are chasing us. We're going to go drive over the Grand Canyon. And I just love that. I
totally agree. It almost makes me think of like, it's such a smart choice to have that like freeze frame, because it almost makes me think of, I'm like still riding the high of musicals because I just did like 3 weeks of musicals. And like one thing we talked about was if you have a character death, they come back out after, and it's like, oh good, like they're not actually dead. Like I can go home and feel good that like my favorite character didn't actually die because it's just a play. And I feel like that ending almost has like that same energy where it's like, we didn't need to see, we know what happens, but like it's still satisfying to see them. I think it's a victory for them. It's a win. Like,
it is. They did not give in, you know? Yeah. They didn't get caught. They simply didn't get caught. And that is
they didn't.
Yeah. It's awesome. I just
it's so good.
Through and through, start to finish. You can't look away from this one. And
you can't.
They're just like the most enjoyable characters. And the other thing too that I think is great about this is that, you know, I think Gina Davis was 35 and Susan Sarandon was like 45, somewhere around there. Which in Hollywood, a lot of the time people will think, you know, oh, you know, that's like past the prime age, you know.
Yeah.
But
we need the young beauties.
They're still like shown as being these like beautiful, desirable, empowered women in this film, which I think just adds to like the entire, you know, feminist
totally,
you know, aspect of this film. So it's just this is one of my favorites
so
forever.
Forever.
It is.
Easily will never leave my top 100 list. It might be, and I think it's in my top 10 on Letterboxd, honestly.
It's in my top 4.
This movie.
Yeah, my 4 favorites
so
is in there.
Good. And it'll always, I love that like this movie, like I'm not even just saying this, I love that this movie will always remind me of you because we like watched it together for the first time.
I can picture it. Like just me and you out there on the couch, you know, late at night. We stayed up late to finish this.
Fun.
And it makes me emotional to think about. It really does. Like
I know.
It will always have like that nostalgic feeling for me. And the fact that I got to watch it with my best friend is like, you know, nothing better. You know, it's perfect.
Nothing. So. It's like the perfect viewing experience for like such a friendship core film.
Exactly.
So
100%.
much fun.
So much fun.
Yeah, we cannot recommend this movie enough. So check it out. You guys can stream Thelma and Louise for free right now on Amazon Prime, or rent it on your movie rental services. And again, hit your local video stores. I'm sure they have this movie for you.
Absolutely.
All right, everyone, we're going to take a quick break. And during that break, you're going to hear from Sonia Maru for another amazing installment of Sonia's Movie Minute. We'll be right back with our final Ride or Die film in the series, so stick around for more on the Gimme Three Podcast, a series for cinephiles.
Hello, I'm Sonia, and this is my Movie Minute. I was so excited when Nick told me the topic of this episode. A few of my personal girlfriend faves that I have to call out are Tank Girl and Jet Girl, The Fight Club and Bottoms, Evie and Tracy and 13, Thelma and Louise, and all the inmates in Girl Interrupted. But I want to devote this minute to the fantastic friendship of 2017's Girls Trip, which tells the story of 4 friends, played by Queen Latifah, Jada Pinkett Smith, Regina Hall, and Tiffany Haddish, who go to New Orleans for the Essence Festival and to generally just cut loose. Girls Trip strikes the perfect balance of heart and hilarity. The relationships are full of the love built over a lifetime, and just like a real true blue friendship, the girls are critical of each other's choices and not afraid to call each other on their shit when needed. I have a group of lifelong friends. We call ourselves the Fun Times Crew. And we've taken a few epic trips, including to New Orleans, so Girls Trip always hits extra close to home for me. Also, this movie was the first time I ever saw Tiffany Haddish, and she is a complete scene-stealing wild woman. It was love at first sight. It's also really fun seeing Jada play the silly scene, since she's often playing kind of a serious role. In one scene in particular, one that you won't soon forget, she urinates all over Bourbon Street. Girls Trip is heartwarming, raunchy, and empowering, just like any good girl friendship should be. It'll make you want to grab your besties and go have an adventure.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm here with Remy Smith on the Gimme Three podcast, and today's theme has been Gimme Three Ride or Die films. So far, we've covered Booksmart and Thelma and Louise, two absolute classics. We hope you're enjoying this episode so far, and we can't wait to get to our third film today. To cap off our Ride or Die movie lineup, we watched the 1996 cult classic directed by F. Gary Gray, Set It Off. Set It Off follows four Black women, Stoney, Cleo, Frankie, and Tashawn. The four women are all very close friends, honestly like family. They look after each other no matter what, through thick and thin. When Frankie is fired from her job as a bank teller, she joins her three friends at the janitorial service they all work at. While each character has their own baggage and set of issues in life, all of their struggles pretty much come down to a lack of money. And after constantly being fucked by the system, the four women decide to take matters into their own hands, which leads to their first bank robbery. Oh, man. I honestly don't even know where to begin talking about this movie. Like, I feel like I don't even have the words.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to talk about this movie with you because I hadn't. Had you seen this one?
I had never seen it. I'd never even heard of it, which I can't believe. You know, I was this movie is so like incredible and fun, and emotional, and just like literally like I was like tense the entire time I watched this. It just like is so evocative. So I couldn't believe that I had never seen it before. It's a good one.
I feel that. Yeah. And like it blew me away. I mean, I watched it like a couple weeks ago now, I think, and I think about it daily since. Like,
yeah, I haven't gotten it out of my head. Yeah.
Right? Like there's funny moments, the heartbreaking moments, the suspenseful, crazy ass action moments they have in it, all of it. Just little details like of it pop into my brain every day. And like every day I'm just like, God damn, that was such a good movie.
Yeah.
Like
it's one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got to shout out our good friend and another fellow cinephile, Trey Armstrong. Trey, thank you so much for putting us onto Set It Off. This was his film recommendation. So what a truly unforgettable movie. I honestly like can't wait to rewatch it all over again. So
yeah,
thanks,
definitely got to rewatch. Thank you so much, Trey. You're the best.
But yeah, this movie has such a stellar cast with, honest to God, like phenomenal performances from everyone involved. Jada Pinkett Smith as Stoney is like the ultimate powerhouse in this film, in my opinion. I was jaw dropped at like just the amount of like emotion and pain that she could channel into like her face, but also her body. Like it's such a physical performance. And the way she did this, it like really elevates like the energy and the stakes of every scene in this film. She was just out of this world.
You feel all the anxiety and the pressure and like the chaos of what these girls go through together. And I gotta say, I think my favorite in this film has to be Queen Latifah as Cleo, because
hell yeah,
she is just like epic in this. It's just so she plays this role so well, and like you just love her. Just the fierce loyalty and like willingness to just do anything for her friends. It's just all of them really have that quality, but her specifically, she's just like down. You know,
she was born to play Cleo.
Yes,
like there's no world in which anyone else could have played this character better than her.
Yeah, completely.
She's such a spectacle in this film in the way that like she has such a magnetic presence and like immediately commands everyone's attention in like every single scene. Like no matter what, there's like a scene where it's like right after they've robbed their first bank and they're going through all the money and they're kind of all like trying to figure out, okay, like what are we gonna do? How are we gonna divvy this up? Like still kind of riding the high, but also like still thinking rationally. And Cleo's just in the back, like dancing with her gun. She's just like, eh.
I know. She's so excited. She like, doesn't she like accidentally shoot something, or like they're like, put that gun down, like please.
Cleo, sit.
Yeah, so funny. She's hilarious.
So fun.
She's
perfect
so fun
dose
and
of
so
like
funny,
comedic relief in this, which is much needed at times.
Yeah, absolutely, because it gets heavy at times for sure, especially with what Stoney goes through with her brother. Just devastating. It just like the anger. Like I just that was such a tough scene. And
Yeah, that pissed me the fuck off, honestly.
same with TT with her son. You know, like the stakes are really high for these girls when they're these women when they're, you know, it's not just like oh, let's go rob these banks for fun. It's like this money is needed, and it's needed, you know. And I love what they say too. It's like we're just stealing it. Somebody says something like, what about the people's money that you're taking? And someone comes back and goes, it's just the system. You know, it's the system that fucked them in the beginning in the first place. So it's
so
just
true.
and this I think is like a really great movie to follow, you know, our discussion about Thelma and Louise, because there's some good there's some solid parallels between the two. And they even make like a Thelma and Louise reference in this film, which I was just like, this is perfect. When I saw that, I was like, no way.
All right, Louise, you take Thelma over there and y'all go rob another bank if you all that.
So
Perfect.
good.
It's perfect.
Like,
yeah.
I literally, I was so hype when you texted me, like, watching this. You're like, dude, they quoted Thelma and Louise. Because when I watched it a few days earlier, I was like, oh my God.
I know.
It's perfect.
I was like, no way. Because we had no idea when we picked.
No.
We had no idea because neither of us had seen this film. So we didn't know that was going to come up. And when it did, it was just like perfect. So
it was perfect.
Yeah.
I feel like we also have got to talk about one of the best scenes in this movie, and maybe in cinema overall, the smoke break on the roof with the four of them.
You know, every time we get high, you start looking like Sugar Bear. For real.
Y'all crazy.
You do kind of look like Sugar Bear.
Fuck all y'all.
Just,
Dude.
it made me like just so appreciative of like friendship between women. It's just it's such a realistic like depiction of just kind of like shooting the shit with your friends and hanging out.
Yes.
Yeah,
I totally agree. And like this isn't like totally related, but so kind of like not a totally related rant, but Remy and I have been saying this for years now. Like there are not nearly enough stoner movies or like stoner comedies with female leads. The only one I can really think of is this movie I was obsessed with in high school called Dude. But like it doesn't even really fall into the category. It's just like
we watched
a bunch
that
of
together,
girls
I
who
think.
smoke.
Yeah.
But it's actually just a really fucked up movie. So I wouldn't even like consider it like a comedy. So yeah, anyways, not to get too carried away, but seeing this scene, like you said, it like made me feel seen in a way that like you just never really see scenes like this in movies with women and like about female friendships. And this scene is remarkable because it's like so silly and funny and just like a good ass time, but it's also so powerful in the way that it kind of serves as like the last breath of fresh air in this film, or like the last happy pure moment they all had together before things kind of like spiraled into chaos. Like it's the moment where all four of them can just let their guards down, be authentically themselves, be happy in themselves, in their lives, happy together. It's just such a beautiful friendship moment that I also thought was very relatable. And it literally made me like giddy watching it. I was like, let's go. Give me more of this.
Well, and you just know things are about to take off after that.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I smiled through that whole thing. Like it's just so funny how they're clowning around and
so funny.
It's hilarious, but it's also like, you know, sort of the point at which they decide, you know, what's going to happen. You know, they're getting high and they're hanging out and they're kind of floating around this seemingly outlandish idea, and then they're like, no, wait a sec, like we could actually do this.
We actually have to do this.
Yeah.
Another great and hilarious scene is the Godfather parody.
Oh, yes.
I thought that was funny. So funny. Like I watched it with like Gabby, my roommate, and we were all just like dying laughing.
It was so
it's just something about seeing like these stoned women taking on this like mob heist iconography, like the Godfather is like the definition of like mob heist iconography, like macho film bro character.
Totally.
And they're just sitting around the table, like you said, like shooting the shit. Like they've got like
about it too, like,
and they killed it.
Yeah, no, they really are. Like they're serious. Like they're, you know, it's not just like them fucking around. Like they're actually, like, you know, doing the shit. So
they're like making plans for their next robbery.
It's
in
crazy.
This format. It's so fucking funny. And I think it's just so important to have scenes like this, like the smoke break or this other moments of like bliss or comedy, because there is so much devastation in these women and like their lives. And the whole concept is already really fucking intense. Like they're out here robbing banks. It's not
and
it's
for
not
like
chill.
fucked up reasons too, you know, like it's different. I think it has a completely different like sort of tone switch from the other two movies. Obviously Booksmart is like, you can pretty much classify that as a comedy. It's really funny through and through, even though it has some touching moments. Thelma and Louise, you know, you're getting a little bit more serious there, and they're definitely dealing with serious topics in terms of like rape and assault and you know, what it is to be a woman in this society and like how important friendships are between women. And then this movie is like really dealing with like even further elements of not only what it is to be a woman, but to be a Black woman in this society and in this country. And I think, you know, it touches on some really devastating and important things, like, you know, this you know, TT's like taking her son to work because she can't afford a daycare, and then the state comes and takes him away. It's just like there's very real things that are explored in this film. But you're right, there are these moments of like where you can kind of take a sigh of relief, and they're all like kind of, you know, horsing around together and having a good time, and the chemistry and like, you know, friendship between them is like super evident, and you can just feel it.
It's like needed for both the viewer and the characters.
Yeah,
like,
completely.
Because you're feeling it's such incredible performances, and the way the script is written is so incredible that you really do connect to these women so much. Like you really feel what they're going through. And it's so infuriating, like so painful. And so there's something about those moments that I think are just so powerful.
Yeah.
For that reason.
And
alone.
You're rooting for them so much. And every time, you know, they do something, you're like, oh, are they going to get away with this? Like, how is this going to work? And when they do, it's just like the biggest sigh of relief ever. And then, of course, you know, there's this dramatic ending. And I think the ending really, you know, speaks to the solidarity and like loyalty between them. And that sort of, you know, it plays out in another, you know, a different way in Thelma and Louise, where they both decide to just like, you know, we're going to go off this cliff together.
Go together.
They're, you know, obviously, I mean, spoilers, of course, but Stoney's, you know, the last one to survive in this situation. But it's because her friends, you know, completely lay themselves out for her. It's like, you know,
this was the plan.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like a really, it's a really fun film. I mean, it's you'll go through all the emotions watching this.
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
It's a movie that has everything. Like it goes above and beyond what you would expect, which is why it's so fucking incredible. And I totally agree with you that like this movie has such an awesome message with the ending in mind, because it does seem like they're chasing after, once they've like kind of gotten into it, like robbing banks and stuff, they're chasing after more and more money, and which eventually leads to them just like almost chasing the rush or the high of the robbery. Like it almost kind of stops becoming about the money in a way, like by the very, very last one. And, you know, it stops becoming about the money like once TT dies, which was like, I don't even know how to talk about that scene. I was bawling my eyes out like uncontrollably. I knew it was going to happen too, because like I feel like that's just such a classic trope in heist or crime films. Like the innocent, kind of hesitant one is always the one who dies.
It's so sad.
Yeah, which is awful. But I was just so like not prepared for how attached I had become to TT, and like
you're just rooting for her so much because she's so much devoted to her child, and she's like,
she has so much to lose.
And she's like the voice of reason almost, where she's very cautious, and you know, she chickens out the first time, and it's you just feel for her so much, because you know that she's only in this situation out of like one, desperation, because she needs the money, you know, like she has a very legitimate need, and two, loyalty to her friends, and you know, like And other thing that I thought was like touching was after the first heist, you know, they get the money and there's this whole conversation about if she should get the money because she didn't participate. And they all are like, are you kidding me? Like she needs it the most. So awful. I know. Oh yeah. That's a brutal scene.
I also like, cause with Cleo and TT, their deaths, like in terms of like storytelling with like heist tropes and stuff like that, like made the most sense to me. It's always the innocent and like the rebel that goes down.
Yeah.
But Frankie's death was cold. Like that honestly had me shook. I don't know why. I did not expect for like only Stoney to get out of there alive.
I know. I was surprised at that. And then like, you know, obviously there's that whole other plot line with her and Keith, and he's like rooting for her, you know? It's just
it's funny. I'm curious what you think, because for me that was so. Is it wrong that was like such a forgettable part of the plot for me?
It really is not the point. Like it really is not the point, you know?
Like he kind of just irked me. I was like, stop holding her down. Like,
I know. Like let her be
go.
with, yeah,
let her go.
Yeah, let her go. Let her go rob some banks. It's just so
like
funny.
We don't need any men keeping the women down in this movie.
I guess it creates like a sort of added thing, you know, especially at the end where they rob the bank he works in, and it's like,
that
so
was definitely a big part of it.
It creates some tension there, but ultimately, he's not the point at all.
It's not like out of pocket. It's not like an out of pocket.
It doesn't. It's not like, oh my god, this makes no sense whatsoever. But it is. It is an interesting aspect of this film. But and I don't know. Yeah, just the way Cleo goes out too, like. Goes out shooting, you know, like she's just like not gonna give up the entire time.
So I love like the feeling of respect in that scene, like when like even just like the guy who sold her the guns, like they're like, oh shit, is that your girl? Because they're watching this like crazy ass police chase with her, and he's like, hell yeah, that's my girl. And it's just so devastating, but like you can tell that everybody is just like has so much respect for Cleo for like you said, the loyalty and like commitment to her friends.
Fierce love and loyalty for her friends.
Yes.
It's also a great good. LA movie. Like it's LA, you know. It's
through and through. Which is always fun to see.
One last parallel I just thought of between this movie and Thelma and Louise is sort of you know, Thelma and Louise, they lose that money because of a man. And then in this movie too, their money gets stolen in sort of a similar kind of careless way where they've stashed it, and then they suspect their employer. I forget what's his name again.
Luther,
fucking right? Fucking Luther. Yeah, they suspect him, and so that creates like another reason for them to go get their money back, and that's why they have to rob another bank. So it is interesting, like, and obviously, I think, you know, maybe some inspiration from Thelma and Louise. They obviously reference Thelma and Louise in this film. So it is just funny how these two kind of have, you know, some obviously two completely different films and dealing with two different, you know, sort of topics. But at their core, there's a lot of similarities, which is fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's that scene with Luther. I was like, I was ready to like smash my TV.
You like, hate him. Yeah. He's just like sucks. But
but the bank robbery scenes in this film are so fucking awesome.
Oh my god, yeah.
Like I love the disguise when they're first starting out with like the wigs and the sunglasses and the flannels. It's so 90s the way they're all wearing like denim or flannels. I love that. So much fun. And then the second bank robbery is just like, and it's funny because the first one goes like so smooth. Like it's easy peasy. They're just like, I think they do it in like under a minute or some crazy shit like that.
They knew what they were doing.
And then the second one is like so fucking crazy. Cleo comes driving through the building.
It's
like
crazy. It's insane. Oh my god.
It's so stressful. I had my palms sweating. Oh, it was so great.
Yeah, this movie definitely has a very 90s feel to it. Like just you can sense that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Like the visual aesthetic of this film is spectacular. Like first of all, the costumes.
Yeah. Not that I was there in the 90s, but like it's what I imagined the 90s
it's
to
what
be
we
like.
imagined it was like.
Yeah.
Even just like cinematography wise, there's so many cool shots in this film. And like we were saying, this movie is so many things in one, and you can kind of see that through how it's shot. Like you've got the like almost kind of stoner comedy because they are like smoking a lot together, but then also like a found family drama in a way. crazy crime action film, and then sometimes it's just a straight up music video compilation, which is like so 90s, and I found it so funny. Like the sex scene with Stoney and I can't think of her man's name,
Keith.
Yes, that was so funny to me. I was like, I've seen this on like MTV before.
It's so funny. Well, and like, yeah, and the way music also is just like, one of my favorite things about Cleo is that before she can start driving like the getaway car, she has to go through all the CDs and like toss them out the window if they suck until she finds something that like will get her hyped up enough to drive the car.
Yes.
That killed me.
So awesome. Yeah, the music is spectacular as
really
well.
is.
Like I think it's the perfect the way they like incorporate it into this movie is kind of like the perfect nod to the era, but then also like the actors like Jada and Queen Latifah who were like actively involved in the music industry and in like the music in the film. I think they had like 4, or at least Queen Latifah had like 4 singles on this that were like all over the top like Billboard and stuff like that.
So cool.
I don't know exactly the rankings and stuff, but apparently it was like going off, which is awesome and
that is so cool.
Well deserved.
Yeah, you gotta. All 3 of these movies, really, music is huge in all 3 of them.
Music is huge.
Awesome. Yeah, the soundtracks for all of these films that we've covered are just so good and like so key to the plot, really. So
yeah,
I love that about them.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
It really is. This is a crazy movie. I didn't know what to expect when starting it. Like
Me
I didn't
either.
I didn't read anything about it. I mean, like obviously I knew we were doing the ride or die episode, so I knew somewhat like what to expect in terms of like a iconic friendship thing going on. But this just took me on a ride I was not prepared for. So
I feel that exactly.
Definitely gonna have to rewatch.
I'm so excited. I might throw it on tonight. Shit, I'm so excited to watch it again. It was
Wait for
so
me.
good.
Let's watch it together.
Okay, yeah, let's rewatch it together. Set the date. It's so fucking good.
Yeah, it's just such a great blend of like action and drama and friendship, camaraderie. And it's awesome.
It's so great. A perfect main ensemble. Like, and I love how each character is like so different as well. Like,
yeah, they've got their own shit going on. And like you said about like the found family, like especially for Stoney too, who like loses her entire family. It's horrendous. It's important. Like what they have together really is like a family. It's so important. And they go to the death for each other, which is it's true friendship.
It really is. Yeah, Set It Off, easily my favorite heist movie now.
It's a great one. It's a classic.
Like, and if we're being honest, like how many heist movies feature women? Not that many, or at least like not many that I'm aware of. Maybe I'm just out of the loop. So again, lovely listeners, please, if you have any women-led heist film recommendations, please send them to Gimme Three. I really want to watch them. And I really cannot recommend this movie enough. Like it is, like we said, it's a true ride or die film with ride or die women, and highly recommend watching it with your best friends. It's a lot of fun. So if you're interested in checking it out or simply revisiting it, it's not streaming for free anywhere at the moment, but you can rent it for just $2.99 on Apple TV or Prime or wherever you rent your movies. And again, of course, check your local video stores. I'm sure they have this one. It's a big cult classic. I hope to see this in theaters one day, man. That'd be so sick if they re-released it.
This would be a great theater experience.
Right?
Oh, I wish I could have seen it in a movie theater. That would have been awesome.
Right? That must have been so crazy. Well, that's a wrap, y'all. Remy, thank you so much for joining me on the Gimme Three podcast today. You're my ride or die man, and I love having you here to talk all things movies. It's seriously always a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me back on. I love being on this podcast. I love listening to this podcast. You guys do a great job, and I can't think of a better episode to have joined you for. So I'm just honored.
Thanks, man. And to all our listeners out there, if you also love the Gimme Three podcast and want to support the show, you can subscribe to our Patreon for a mere $5 a month. We offer a whole bunch of bonus content on there, including some spoiler-free movie recommendations, our other 3 favorite films of 2023, and a very special interview with Gimme Three's Nicholas Ibarra and Molly Asher, the producer of many of Chloe Zhao's films. So if any of that interests you, you can sign up by scrolling down to our episode description and clicking the link that says support the show. There's also a Patreon link in there as well. Thank you so much for all your support. We really, really appreciate it. You can also find us on Instagram at Gimme Three Podcast. That's GIMME, spell out 3 podcast. Let us know what you think of the 3 films we talked about today. And while you're there, give us a follow. Also, please let us know your personal favorite Ride or Die films. And as a special request from me and Remy, please send us your stoner comedies that you recommend.
Please.
With women.
We need them. We need them.
We need them. We want to watch them. Remy, feel free to tell our listeners where they can find you on the socials.
Yeah, you can find me pretty much on everything. Letterboxd, Instagram, all that good stuff. Remy Noelle, RemyNoellee. So that's me.
Awesome. And you can find me on Instagram at Portrait of a Cinephile or on Letterboxd at Bella Efstratis. That's just B and then my last name, Efstratis. Be sure to tune in next week for Nick's return and a spotlight on 3 Michelle Pfeiffer movies in honor of the icon's birthday next week. Thank you so much for joining us for the Gimme Three podcast, and we'll see you at the movies.